Okay, good afternoon. My name is Bill Becker. I'm the president, founder, and general counsel of Freedom X. Freedom X is a Los Angeles-based 501c3 nonprofit public interest law firm protecting the rights of conservatives and people of faith. We're here today to talk about the appeal of the suspension and sanctioning of an Orange Coast College student, freshman, by the name of Caleb O'Neil. On November 15th, Caleb was sitting in his human sexuality class when the instructor, Olga Cox, began talking about the Trump election in a negative way. Caleb is a member of the college Republicans. Caleb was physically attacked at a recent Trump rally prior to the election. Many of the college Republicans had been very concerned that their free speech rights were being limited on campus and that their security and safety was being tested. So for that reason, Caleb decided to record and document the hostile words of this particular instructor. What that instructor did that day violates the Constitution. What she did was threaten and intimidate all students who don't believe the way she believes about Trump and about politics. And she put her students in 3 classes on notice that anyone who disagreed with her views was unwelcome in her class, at home, or anywhere near her. I'm going to read you some of the statements that she made. Can you hold my phone? Yeah. She said, "I've always strived to be a tolerant person, and I am, and I've always worked to tolerate people that are different from me and have different views than I have. But I can't do that now. I can't. It's just not okay with me. The decision that I've made for myself right now is that I will not tolerate any person in my life that voted for Trump or for his belief system." Can you imagine a conservative instructor on this campus after Obama was elected saying, "I can't tolerate anybody in my life who voted for Barack Obama"? If the shoe were on the other foot, the treatment would have been much different. But in this case, it was the messenger of that offensive speech who is being punished. She called President Trump a white supremacist and said white supremacists have put out a call to their white brothers. This is an instructor who believes that if you're white and you're Christian, you're a white supremacist. That word is meaningless. Real white supremacists are real haters, and they hate people because of the color of their skin. And to call somebody a white supremacist is to slur them and defame them. And she slurred and defamed every person who voted for Trump. She says Vice President Pence is one of the most anti-gay humans in this country. I don't know where she got that. Vice President Trump, as governor of Indiana, sought to protect the religious liberty rights of Christians. That's all he did. He didn't attack gays or lesbians. Vice President Pence, thank you for the correction. Edit that in the editing room. And she said this in a class on human sexuality without any foundation, without any factual support, nothing but a bald opinion. And she felt she was in the right. She felt it was her duty, her pedagogical duty as an instructor, to throw those opinions out. Well, those opinions have consequences. And if the appeal of Caleb's sanction and suspension is not lifted and reversed, we'll take legal action against the college. Now, I'll take your questions after Caleb has had a chance to speak, and I want to introduce two people. First, I'd like to introduce Joshua Ricaldi Martinez. Josh was the president of the College Republicans last semester. And Josh is a great American, and Josh is responsible for us being here today. And he may have a few words to say, and he'll also take questions. And making his first appearance in public after attempting to keep this matter subdued is Caleb O'Neil. Caleb is brave, and he's a hero. He's a hero. Both of these gentlemen are heroes because they're heroes for the right of free speech in this country, which Freedom X is here to protect. So without further ado, I'm going to allow Caleb to say a few words, and then we'll both take questions. Direct any questions regarding legal matters or procedure to me.
How's it going? My name's Caleb O'Neil. My name's Caleb O'Neil, and I'd like to just address your questions. Yeah, I'll address your questions if you have any.
Talk to us first about this fear that you seem to have, and is that what caused you to think you needed to record this session?
Going into that class, during that day we had a meeting on campus, and we were locked out because we were going to celebrate the Trump election, but they would not let us in without one of our administrators there. And so we finally got our administrator coming. The first security guard left, and then it took about 20 minutes or 30 minutes for the next security guard to come in, and he checked our administrator's ID, and we were let in. And then two administrators were there, and they basically told us that we were antagonizing against the Planned Parenthood Club, and that we needed to stop, and repercussions would happen to both sides if that ever happened again. And then they left, so they were unannounced when they came in. But it scared me that day was when two of our members came in and they didn't sit and listen to them because and when I asked them why they didn't, they said one of them is known for targeting conservative students, and she would put sanctions on their clubs that they run, and that scared me to a point where I was like, oh, well, the administration is basically coming down on us. And then later on during that class, I went down. It was 6 o'clock at night, and I went into the class, walked right by her, which I always do. I've worn Trump stuff in that class. I've worn a hat in that class, my signed hat. And I went down and sat down and was ready for the classroom discussion to happen. And it basically went in from this is what's like. She was going to talk about the election, but then she went in and said the administration, some of my colleagues believe in this, and then she started calling everyone white. Well, basically called Trump a white supremacist, and went on that. And then I pulled my phone out because I was honestly scared that I would have repercussions with my grades if because she knew that I was a Trump supporter. And I mean, I missed a class before that, so my grade was already went from basically A+ down to A- because if you miss a class, it deducts 20 points from your grade, and so it brought me down to A- on the border of a B. So I was nervous I was going to get a B in the class.
Caleb, what's your GPA?
3.85.
So were you aware that there was any policy that said you could not record?
I was not aware at the time. We went to President Hart. After I filmed, I asked Josh, hey, who should I go to and discuss this? I feel like I was fearful of my grade. And he said, well, we'll get a meeting with the administrator. And then Sean Steele was able to get us a meeting with President Harkins. And we had the meeting. We talked about what occurred. We showed him both videos, and he basically said, well, she has her freedom of speech, but thank you for showing me the videos. He wasn't He didn't tell me that what I did broke student rules of conduct or anything. He basically said, well, thank you for showing me this. I'll have a talk with, well, he'll try to get someone to have a talk with her and discuss what happened. But this is what really got to me was the next week, that next Tuesday, I went into class and it was taking a while to start, like it was 15 minutes behind, and I saw one of the administrators run up, not the administrator, the teacher's assistants, run up to Miss Olga, and they were talking and they were looking over at my direction, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. They're pointing at everyone in our row, the first row, and then the second row. And then afterwards, I went and talked to my friend Allie Nordley, who was sitting in front of me, and I said, hey, what were they talking about? She's like, it was kind of weird. They went down, like, do you think it was her? No, it couldn't be him. It couldn't be him. What about the one in the white? And I was wearing white that day, and then Olga said, from Allie Norley telling me this, she said, yeah, the one in the white. And then that's how the class started. The assistant teacher ran up, and then they started the lecture after that. And hearing that, I was even more fearful. I honestly, that's when I believed I was going to have repercussions taken out on my grade. And that's when I asked Josh, well, we just had a meeting with the president, and the teacher just looked at me, and she said, it was the one in the white. Yeah, it's the one in the white. And then after that, everything blew up and it became national news.
Let me just interject something here. You know, one of the things that Ms. Cox stated that day was, it's scary living in Orange County because so many people here are hateful. She turned the tables on that statement because now she's made it scary to live in Orange County because of her hatefulness. Other questions?
Could you talk about the suspension and what's been required of you now?
Let me address that.
Okay.
He was notified on February 9th that he would be suspended for the summer and for a full semester. That he would be required to make a written apology to Ms. Cox, and that he would be required to write an essay detailing and analyzing, among other things, why the video went viral. Now, if that isn't punitive, I don't know what is. Basically, what the administration of the campus has done is they've completely sided with the teacher at the expense of the rights of a student. It should be the other way around. She's a public servant. She's employed by you.
Is there a part of you, Mr. Becker, that can take the politics out of this and discuss the policy and what Caleb should have known going into these classes?
You know, the videotape policy, let's imagine that the teacher was threatening somebody's life and that was videotaped against policy. Do you think that the messenger should be punished for having documented that illegal act? This unconstitutional act needed to be documented. If Caleb had gone to the president of the college and said, this is what Ms. Cox said, he would have been believed maybe this much. Where you've got video evidence of an unconstitutional or illegal act, that's better evidence. And what he did was perfectly within his right. This policy is not directed at students who are in fear of their safety and security or who are being retaliated against simply because of their viewpoints.
Caleb, when you submitted that video, had you hoped that that teacher would have been reprimanded to some degree?
All I went into that meeting was asking for an apology. And I just wanted to, I even during the meeting when they were discussing this with the student dean, she asked me if I wanted to have a conversation with Olga and we can discuss what happened. And that's really what I wanted. I just wanted to tell her that, look, you really offended a lot of people, and a lot of people are silent. You silenced a majority of your class, because I know other people that are in that class that are conservatives, and they felt the same way. But no, I thought Olga was a good teacher, but what she said really, I mean, you could see the videos. It was a direct attack against me because she saw that she had to see. I've walked by her almost every class with a Trump T-shirt or a hat on. She knew I was a Trump supporter. She even during the video it shows her looking at me when she's talking about terrorism. So I mean, it was directed right towards me, and that's how I took it.
Caleb, I know at the time you just wanted an apology, but now are you asking for her to be fired?
No.
Or are you guys asking for the law to be, or the policy to be overturned?
We're asking for the policy. In front of the mic, please. I'm sorry. We'll be asking that they enforce the policy to protect students and to keep them safe and secure on this campus against threats and intimidation by the administration. We're not seeking anybody's heads, but let me just say this. The very fact that the administration is not disciplining this instructor raises questions of their bias. And we believe that they are not investigating. Well, I don't want to speculate, but I will say that it's curious that they're not investigating her and that she has not been disciplined for what she said, whereas the messenger is.
You see this as a freedom of religion issue fundamentally?
In part because Ms. Cox attacked Mormons in that speech. She said she couldn't go home to go to Utah, where her home is, where her family lives. She can't even go to her family's home anymore because they voted for Trump. And she said her house is a safe space and no one who voted for Trump is welcome in her house. And she said that nobody is welcome near me.
Excuse me, sir, I have a question. It seems that they've implemented this policy.
Who are you?
My name is Jeremy. I'm a student of the school. Okay. It seems that they implemented this policy where we're now not allowed to record without the instructor's permission, and it's kind of hard to swallow because we pay for these classes. Granted, it is subsidized by the state of California, but we pay for these classes, and the opportunity to not be able to record information. It seems like they don't really care about us. It seems like they're more trying to protect the administration, and I just want to know how you feel about that. What can we do to kind of start our own petition to maybe say, hey, we're not for this policy, this non-recording without their permission policy?
Yeah. Listen, one has to understand what the justification for that restriction is. I can understand where some professors might feel that the sensitivity of their curriculum may be something that would be difficult for people outside the university community to understand, and that with the advent of social media and YouTube and that sort of thing, news spreads pretty fast. So I can in part understand why there might be that consent requirement. But what students should be able to do is rationally be able to document a course if it assists them in their learning ability. And the professor should be liberal in the way that they apply the rule. Now, the fact that it's a blanket rule that applies in every circumstance is unjustifiable and overbroad. And because of that overbreadth, that violates the Constitution. But the fact is this, that in this case, a student saw a particular need. He wasn't taping the class when she was talking about the subject matter, which is sensitive subject matter. I'm not even sure why a course on human sexuality needs to be taught to 17, 18, 19-year-olds, but apparently these days it does. I learned it on my own, by the way. But so, you know, one can understand why in that particular class you wouldn't want to record it, but he wasn't recording those comments. He specifically has never recorded in that class in the past, nor in the follow-up courses after that. And it was only that short period where he turned his camera on once, turned it off thinking she was returning to the subject matter of the course, and then when she strayed back to politics, he turned it back on and then turned it off again. Very limited recording.
I would never want to film one of my students in that class because a lot of sexual comments have been made in that class, and I think with that perspective, I would say that none of those comments should be posted. That's why I stopped recording, and then I started recording again because I thought she was going back into the classroom, and I didn't want recording my fellow students talking about anything sexual because that's pretty personal stuff.
This was not a government class or a political course.
No.
It was something totally separate.
It was a human sexuality and behaviors.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you want to do for a career path, Caleb?
Become a businessman. Just get my GEs from Costa, hopefully transfer somewhere I can row afterwards, and then just become a businessman or a salesman.
Like USC?
Maybe, I don't know.
Caleb, what exactly do you think that she said that was unconstitutional, and how was it unconstitutional?
I couldn't hear the question. What was it?
What did she say was unconstitutional?
What did I say was unconstitutional?
No, Olga Cox.
Under the law, there's some legal doctrine called viewpoint discrimination. All right, this is a public college paid for by taxpayer money. It is subject to the Constitution. It is subject to the First Amendment. And because of that, the teachers are public officials, just as if they worked in a government office. And they are required to comply with the First Amendment. And what that means is, in this case, this is an example of First Amendment retaliation. There's case law in this state that refers, or in the Ninth Circuit, that refers to First Amendment retaliation. And what the campus has done by suspending Caleb is retaliate on the basis of his First Amendment right of expression by expressing his conservative viewpoints, by wearing his Make America Great hat to school, by wearing his Vote for Trump t-shirt to school, and by not having a teacher threaten him and people like him with retribution simply because they share different viewpoints.
Called it viewpoint discrimination?
Viewpoint discrimination, Title 42, United States Code, Section 1983, which is the Civil Rights Act.
Sir, if I may just to follow up, if police officers don't have the right to privacy while they're in uniform and we can record them, while teachers are teaching, why would they then have a right to privacy while teaching if we pay for it?
I think you're alluding to a case involving police officers undercover at a university to try to build an investigation against...
No, just regular standard police officers in uniform. If we can record them because we pay tax money and we pay our teachers here, then why would we not be in the same...
No, that's all right. Your question, I don't think I answered it well before. Your question is a good one. What can you do as students to change the policy? And certainly a petition to change it so that it is justified on the basis of specific interests of the state, okay? That's what they should be doing. If a policy restricting speech is so overbroad that it can be applied in any context like it was here, then it does infringe on your First Amendment rights, okay? And so you've got to work within the student government and the administration to try to change that policy. If we have to file a lawsuit in this case, we will attack the vagueness and overbreadth of this particular rule, because it does apply in cases where government officials, and that's a teacher here, where government officials apply it using their unbridled discretion. And they cannot use their unbridled discretion. They cannot arbitrarily enforce a rule based on some subjective interest. It has to be based on the general welfare and a specific state interest.
And it seems that we're all being punished now, because they're in fear that something could be said, and it's not fair to the student body.
This case is going to change that.
Can I say something about that? Even teachers think it's ridiculous. They allow us to pull our phones out and even text and talk, but I'm basically getting in trouble for that. It is very broad, and I think some teachers see that it's kind of ludicrous, but others,
I'm sorry, I missed part of the beginning, but have you talked about the fact that you brought this to the deans and he refused to comment?
I brought it to the president.
Right.
Yeah.
And he refused to have further meeting because some of the teachers that do support the policy, they say, oh, well, thanks the Republican Club. I've heard that often. And I'll meet with the teachers after class, of course, and I'll let them know, were you aware that he brought it to the president and the president refused to meet with him?
He said, the president basically said he would have someone talk to her, and then the next class, she's looking over at me saying it's the one in the white. So I don't know how that conversation went, but it was just shocking that happened.
Josh would like to address it.
So as someone who's been on this crazy journey from the beginning, when Caleb first brought this to my attention, it all started on November 15th of last year, 7 days after the election of Donald Trump as our president. And you know what? What we had two campus administrators who, without prior notice, came into the Orange Coast College Republicans meeting to talk with us and lecture us on how to conduct ourselves on campus without being notified in advance of what this was with regards to. Numerous students in that room had concerns about this meeting. Some tried to ask the administrators why it was that we were being visited by them, and every time they would divert. They would not give us a direct comment. We had to pry it out of them. And after that, Caleb, feeling targeted numerous times during this election cycle, went into his classroom expecting it to be like any other class on a human sexuality that he's been taking with Olga. And to his dismay, found that his teacher had a prejudice against conservative students and conservatives as a whole in Orange County. What we see today is the lack of action on the part of administration to rectify this issue with the professor. On numerous occasions, we brought this to the attention of the campus administration. Last semester, I served as the regional delegate, and I served in the capacity to represent and advocate on the behalf of students. I served as the president of the Orange Coast College Republicans, and in both capacities, I tried to act to represent Caleb to the best of my ability, before the Board of Trustees, to President Harkins, and to even you, the media. And yet, there has been no action in the close to 3 months that this has occurred, 2, that this has been in the open from the campus administration against Olga, while she continues to teach a class, close to 400 students, 3 classes this semester, similar to last semester, having dropped in enrollment from close to 600 last semester, this semester. We can see that students do not want to be around a professor who targets their students.
Let me add something here. You know, even before Trump was elected, and a lot since he's been elected, conservatives have been under attack. The riots at UC Berkeley, the demonstrations at UC Davis, the hateful things that are said about conservatives really goes to show that hate is a two-way street. And fairness is a two-way street as well. And so that means that there ought to be the same rules applied to people who voted for Trump as those who voted for Hillary or Obama. And those rules aren't being applied at Orange Coast College right now. And we'd like to see them applied here at Berkeley, throughout the UC and Cal State systems, and throughout the country. Enough with the anarchy and destroying the Starbucks windows. We get your point, okay? But the point is, we don't do that. We try to debate in the marketplace of ideas on college campuses, and we do it in a civil way. But that's not allowed here right now. Anything else? I'm melting.
Yes. Prior to this incident, yes, I was proud of Orange Coast College. And even after this incident, I continue to be proud of Orange Coast College providing a quality education to its students. However, I'm not proud of the fact that when issues are found with their instructors, they do nothing to rectify it. I think Orange Coast College is a great institution. I think that so many students come here and go to the school of their choice later and pursue the careers that they like and want to go in. But what we're seeing today is a lack of action on the part of administration, even with a prior notice given. And I'd like to note that in our student code of conduct, which is a board policy, students are given specific rights. One is to experience a safe educational environment. Caleb was not given that.
Free of retaliation.
Free of retaliation. Caleb was not given that.
I'd like to point out that we have Newport Beach City Councilman Scott Piotr here, who's a good friend. He was also the victim of viewpoint discrimination at one time, and you can Google that. But he's a great supporter of free speech, and I just wanted to mention that.
One more question. I wanted to know, now that all of this has happened, you've been suspended, and what had happened to Olga at the end of the last semester, do you regret filming and the video and handing it off?
Can you look in the middle?
No, I did not regret that at all. No, I don't regret what I did.
I have a question for Caleb. So it looks like you do a sport here at Orange Coast College. Will this affect your sport at all?
Yeah, if I'm not allowed to, well, once I get suspended, I'm not allowed to row anymore. and because I'm the stroke seat of the V8 right now, and first of all, it hurt the team a lot, and I wouldn't be able to row anywhere else because it's the only JC that allows rowing.
Caleb, what is the V8? Why is that important?
It's a varsity 8-man on the team. We have a history of great rowing here. All my coaches from my previous club at the NAC had rowed here. It has a great history, and that's honestly, I just want to row at this school and be able to have my education at this school.
Caleb, the letter that you received last week, was it calling for your suspension to begin this semester or summer?
Okay, the process here is that with the letter, he's put on notice that he has 10 days to appeal, and that has to be done through a notice of appeal with argument, and that's what this letter is that we're filing with the college today. Once that is reviewed by the college, they've got no more than 10 days and no less than 30 days. So in other words, in the next 30 or 40 days, they have to rule on the appeal. And during that time, Caleb is still in class. He's not under suspension. He doesn't have to comply with the sanctions. If they deliver an adverse ruling at the end of that time period, then we will immediately file for a temporary restraining order in federal court in Orange County and a preliminary and permanent injunction, and we'll be seeking other legal remedies.
Caleb, have you experienced any further discrimination here?
Well, not really, no. I mean, it's always discriminatory against conservatives at this school, but you just go with it. Because mainly teachers allow you to speak, and some of my teachers, Miss Polk and Miss Fandago, they allowed me to, they said just as bad stuff about Trump, but at the end of the day, they allowed us to talk and we discussed. And they came up to me and said, "Thank you for talking about it. It's nice to hear from a conservative." And I told them we're scared to speak out because we could get affected, our grades could be affected, or even worse, we could be targeted at the school.
Not only has he not experienced discrimination, but I want to introduce the head of this semester's college Republicans, who happens to be a minority. Come on over. And you know, for all of those teachers out there that think that Republicans and conservatives are haters, this gentleman happens to be gay. So where does that argument land?
Well,
Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Vincent Wetzel. I'm the president of the OCC Republicans Club. Yeah, I'm gay, I'm Latino, I'm in a single parent household right now. I'm a low-income, starving college student. I'm all the minorities. So, where are we going?
That's it. Okay. Anything else?
Well, unless you have any questions,
Yeah.
we're happy to answer.
What was your final grade in Olga's class?
I got an A.
Yeah. Now he got an A before she knew that he was responsible for the video.
And I'd also like to note that professors have free discretion to change the grade up to a year after the grade's been given for the class, so Professor Cox still has the ability to go back and change it to even an F. And according to academic freedom, the professor's given full ability to do that.
And that would only be further evidence of discrimination and retaliation. I am inept on those sorts of things, so if one wants to get started, we'd encourage somebody to talk to Josh here, because Josh is coordinating those kinds of things for us.
Josh, has the administration opposed the Republican Club since they came to the meeting?
So since they came to our meeting, when we were holding a protest, we were given a little bit of an issue when it came to the paperwork, even though it was already filed to receive resources from the campus administration. Although it wasn't an official protest on the part of the OCC Republicans, Republican members were in that group and known in that group, seeing as how the administrators that we were requesting permission from were the ones we were filing the papers to. We've also received in that time 3 notices of investigation against myself, the former vice president, and the communications director. And might I add, the only person who really had any direct involvement in any of this was myself. It wasn't an official club issue, just so much as something the club was advocating on the part of. And in addition to that, now that we've received, all 3 of us, excluding Caleb, notices of insufficient evidence to pursue sanctions against ourselves, we will be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that Caleb O'Neil is protected from this radical school's draconian punishments.
When you received that caused you to change anything you were doing? I mean, how did that make you feel when you read that?
It made me feel like I had to move on from my current role as the College Republicans president and appoint a new president to the College Republicans, so that way we could finally move on from the Olga issue. But apparently the campus doesn't want to do that, so it's going to be dredged up again.
All right, thank you for coming.